Hey there, comedy fans. Welcome to My First Joke, the podcast where we dive deep into the hilarious stories of how comedians got their start. I'm your host, Kareem Kanji. Today, I'm joined by comedian Freddy Jan. Today's episode is brought to you by welcome to travel.ca. If you're looking for the best and most affordable all inclusive trips for you and your crew, check out welcome to travel.ca today. And tell them I sent you. All right. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to My First Joke wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoy what you hear, share it with your friends, leave a review, and hit us up with those 5 stars. And if you want to stay in the loop, follow me on Instagram at Kareem Kanji. All right, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with comedian Freddy Jan. Freddie, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Doing well, man. What about you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. Listen, let's get right into it. Let's get started. What got you into comedy? What inspired you? Was it a dare, or what, how did this thing get started for you?
Yeah, I feel like it was a few things that sort of snowballed into each other. So, like the first memory I have of someone mentioning stand up was me like in kindergarten, and some
Oh,
guy who was a kid, yeah, a classmate of mine named Daniel. He was just like, oh, we were talking about what we were going to be, and Daniel was like, oh, you should be a comedian, stand up comedian. I didn't even know what that was.
yeah,
Uh, I just asked, I was like, do they make a lot of money? He's just like, yeah, they do. And so that was it. I never thought of it after that for like years, but I remember that memory, right? So it obviously
yeah.
left an impact on me to some degree. And then coming out of university, I had like an office job, and it's an adjustment getting that like first job out of school. And I
Yeah.
was just I wanted to do something with my nights and my evenings, and
Oh,
I had
okay.
yeah, I had thoughts about like potentially doing stand up while I was in university, and but like nothing serious, like kind of like, oh, you want to I want to skydive, and I want to go to Hawaii, like these things, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I kind of had just like kept some notes in my phone of potential joke ideas. Anyways, long story short, one day I'm at work, and I send like an email out to Yuk Yuks for their amateur night.
Okay.
And so I send it out, and I didn't really get any response. And then 3 months later, I'm at my mom's work, and I get a message from them being like, "Hey, somebody dropped out. If you want, you can come on tonight." So that was like I had about 3 hours at that point in time. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, screw it. And, went and did the thing. And then it's kind of snowballed ever since there.
Whoa. Like that's like so. I think you've missed a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
you go from kindergarten, you should be a stand-up comic to yeah, maybe I'll do this thing like skydiving, right? Like it's a thing that's out there.
Hmm.
To Yuck Yucks calling you, okay, I'll come.
Yeah.
Um, like were you going to comedy shows? Was there a style that you liked? Um, how did you even know to email Yuck Yucks in the first place?
So that's the crazy thing, right? It sounds like there's chunks missing because, like, from that kindergarten moment, like, I was not watching stand up comedy at all. Like, I watched
Yeah.
maybe two specials, like, throughout my whole entire life leading up to me doing stand up, and I didn't even fully watch them. I like didn't know anything about comedy. I emailed Yuk Yuks because I didn't even know open mics existed. I just typed in stand up comedy Toronto, and then Yuk Yuks amateur night, I guess, was one of like the second or third links that pop up.
Yeah.
And so I clicked it, and they just said you send an email here. So I thought that's just how all stand up was done. So my like
Wow.
knowledge and honestly like my love of stand up was like pretty low going into it. I knew that it would be something I potentially could enjoy. And so I think that's
Okay.
what I had like my like jokes and like my notes. But like if someone had said to me at like 17, what do you want to be? I would not have said stand up comedian at all. It just kind of was not in my like wheelhouse of the way I thought.
Wow. Do you remember the first joke or one of your first jokes you told at that Yuck Yucks amateur night?
Yeah, I remember. So that night was like a particularly weird night. As so, like the one joke that I remember that stood out is I was talking about like how in university, everyone who I lived with, we were extremely messy. Like we were like a messy like group of like roommates, which is like not that's not special. But I
Yeah.
we sort of like made a reference how we like, you know, the potato chips on the ground, people are passed out, you know, like they're asking people for money. I said it was homelessness indoors. Like that's basically what like
Yeah.
our living situation was like. And luckily at that night, there was just like a bunch of drunk moms in the audience. And so I think just like a young kid admitting that like he was just like completely messy and like all these guys were lost without their parents, like hit them in a way where they didn't really find it funny, but they found it like enjoyable to listen to. So that's like
They
the first.
related to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that was the first pop I remember hearing from that set. And like the first one, like I remember also like writing as well.
Okay. And how did that whole performance go? How did you feel when you got off stage? Did you have that, I've heard that feeling that people say, okay, I knew right then that this is what I wanted to do. What was that for you? Was it the same thing or?
So yeah, like afterwards, I definitely knew I enjoyed it. Like the lead up to it was like pretty stressful. So like when I got there, I was
Okay.
nervous because I only had like 3 hours to sort of like prepare. And then when I got there, Yuk Yuks now, if you go to the amateur night, there's a lot of comedians who've been doing it like 3, 5, even 7 years, right? Like they're trying to like show uh,
Okay.
their abilities to like the bookers. There's some new people, but on
Yeah.
my lineup, it was mostly new people. And then it was one guy who was like the host of the Space Channel. He had just gotten fired from his job. He was like the first comedian who went up. And so he like professed that he was like, I just got fired from my job. I was the host of the Space Channel. I'm going to be doing stand up again now. I'm coming back. And then he like bombed. He like ate shit completely. First
Oh
stand up.
man.
And I was like, okay, this guy's like the host of like the Space Channel. Like this is like, you know, he's supposed to be good. And honestly, he was. It was like a tough room as well. And so then comedian after comedian went by, and these comedians were actually really bad because it was like legit their first time doing it. And the host that night, after they bombed, he would rate them from 1 to 10. So he'd be like, "Oh, that's a 2 out of 10. That's a 4 out of 10." You know,
Oh.
like just yeah. So like, and I'm going up. I think I was like maybe fourth or fifth at that point in time. And so every time they're going up, like I'm getting more anxious. One comedian who was new, we both kind of bonded in that moment, and he was like, he was certain he was going to crush. He did bad. And then so when I walked up, I like legit wanted to like run away. Like if someone said, "Hey, you can pull out," I would have. But luckily, I just like had the right material for the right audience, and they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Uh, After that, I was like, okay, you know, like I love this. You know, I think I'm really good at it. That's what I thought, and I was. But you, even in stand up now, just because you do a good once doesn't mean you're going to do good next time. So even though I was just like, oh my God, I did so well, I'm going to do well next time. The second set I did, I completely bombed. But the first one went well, and I was completely in love with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, how long have you been doing comedy for now?
Yeah, now I'm like 5, 6 years about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And how has your style changed? How has it not? What are your thoughts on your style?
Yeah, like I think for the most part, I would say like it hasn't, you know, in a way that like I'm proud of. Like I think what I originally was trying to do on stage was like still tied to like what I'm trying to accomplish now, which is like trying to pull off some darker material in a way that like isn't
Oh,
alienating 50% of the audience.
okay.
Uh, but obviously like the skill, the level, like the expertise that like I've like learned over time has made me able to do it better. But I would say I still am like trying to do dark material in a way that like I find enjoyable. So I would say my style has stayed the same, but like the way
Yeah.
I do it obviously changed.
Okay. So no more messy rooms.
No, no more messy rooms. Like, you know what? Like the thing is like the full version of that joke is like I was comparing like my like roommates to like homeless people. So I was like saying like there's like flies on their face. They've just been doing drugs. One person OD'd. So I did try to go dark on it, but like the moms didn't want the dark stuff. They like
Yeah.
the more like clean cut stuff. Yeah.
So 5 years, I mean, that's a good time frame to sort of ask yourself the question, is this what you want to keep on doing or not? I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
Enough time has passed, enough sets have passed. Um, have you asked yourself that question, or are you just enjoying the journey?
No, I'm fully locked in. Like I think you made a good point.
Yeah.
Like 5 years to me is enough, like to kind of like decide, like, hey, are you gonna get in and you're gonna get out with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I also think it takes up a lot of time stand up. So doing it like 5 years, 6 years now, putting the time that I have, the way I look at it is like you should basically try to go make or break. So that's my mindset now is basically like, even though I have like a day job, it's like, I want to push this as far as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And then where it takes me.
Have you had a moment like I was speaking with, I don't know if you know Rebecca Reeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was speaking with her earlier today, and I asked her, "Have you had a I made it moment?" And she, she told me about a story of um, meeting Arnold Schwarzenegger after a show
Mm,
backstage. I think she was opening for that comedian Fortune. I can't remember her last name. Um, at Massey Hall.
okay.
Have you had like has there been a moment for you where you could look at it and go, okay, I made the right decision 5, 6 years ago. This, I don't know. Is there a moment that you've had that you said, okay, I'm doing good. I've made it, or I'm
Yeah.
making it.
Yeah, I've had moments, none where I'm like, I've made it just because I feel, and this is like the rat race of comedy is like that
Yeah, yeah,
goal mark always changes, right? So at first it was like, oh,
yeah,
I'm doing open mics. I just want my first book show. Then you go from, I want my first book show to it being, I want to be on this show. And then you're like, oh, I'm on these shows, but I want to headline this show, right? So it keeps on moving. But I've had moments where I'm like, damn, this is really cool.
yeah,
One that stands out to me is like about like maybe 2 years ago, I ended up traveling to Japan with my family. And I managed to do some shows in Tokyo and Osaka over there.
yeah.
And so I got to perform in front of like a pretty big audience in both cities. And that was when I sort of felt like, oh, you know what? Like the only reason I was able to do this is because like I made the connections in Toronto that allowed me to be able to like get booked on the show. And then I did well on the show, and it was a difficult room because it's a lot of expats, but then there's a lot of Japanese
Okay.
people there, and they're just there to learn how to speak English. So they're not like
No.
paying attention like as like a comedic audience. So it was tough, but I ended up doing well. And so in that moment, I was like, it's almost like impossible not to be a little bit proud of yourself when you're like walking through the streets of Tokyo
Yeah.
after like a good set. So that's probably the closest moment I've had.
Oh, that is so cool. What is
Yeah.
it? Is there a next goalpost you have in mind?
Yeah, like next goalpost is tough. Like I feel like now, I don't know if other comedians when they get to this mark feel the same thing, but the it's comedy is like a weird thing where it
Yeah.
almost tricks you into getting into it. So the first few goals are easier and that you can get them in a quicker amount of time, right? So the distance and time it takes to go from open mic to first book shows for some people it's like 3 weeks, for some people it's 6 months, right? But it's still pretty short. But then you go from you've headlined a show, so then like what's next? Well, now someone's like, well, I want to go to New York and perform in this show. I want to go to LA, and it becomes a lot harder. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
fortunate position now where like a lot of like my next step goals are sort of like kind of like muddled all into territory that is kind of hard to envision, but in a good way. So like
Sure.
I would like to like go to the States eventually and like perform and do like comedy there, right? But
Yeah.
that's a very tough goal to make happen. That's probably like my next thing though, is what I want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. That's good. Freddie, this has been fun. Thank you so much
Yeah, for sure.
for your time. Listen, if people want to come out to your next shows, follow you online, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at FreddyJan17, FreddyJan17. I'll post all my shows there.
That's awesome. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of My First Joke. I hope you had as much fun listening as I had chatting with Freddy Jan. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to My First Joke wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Share with your friends, take a moment to rate, review, and 5-star the podcast. The website is myfirstjoke.ca. My name is Kareem Kanji. Until next time, remember,
Remember to enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. Honestly, stand up is a long one. Honestly, anything worthwhile, the journey is honestly pretty long. So try to have fun with it, especially if you're doing stand up. I feel like most of the moments I've had on the grind have like been more fun than the actual accomplishments. So just enjoy the journey.
wise words, Freddie. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.